Let us draw a simplified scheme of lymph node that will perhaps help us to understand the real slide. So the surface of a lymph node is covered by a fibrous capsule made of dense collagenous connective tissue, and it's interrupted by the afferent lymphatic vessels that carry the lymph in. And there is also the region with the blood vessels entering and leaving, which is called the hilum. So where we have usually a blood vessel, an arteriole that branches, goes to the region below the fibrous capsule. It returns as veins, and from more veins we have the vein that leaves the hilum, and we got also an afferent lymph node that originates from a confluence of several larger spaces here that carries the lymph away. So once the lymph enters the lymph node, it flows through a capillary space just beneath the fibrous capsule, and the capillary space is called subcapsular or marginal sinus. Then it flows along the connective tissue trabecules that penetrate here, and it flows around the accumulations of lymphocytes that are called lymphoid follicles. So we have these lymphoid follicles here, and the region with the lymphoid follicles is called the cortex. The stroma that forms and maintains the shape and the inner structure of a lymph node is made of reticular connective tissue. So we got many fibroblasts and reticular fibers here, providing support to the other structures. And we got these sinuses, the paratrabecular, the paracortical sinuses, which brings us into the region of medulla, medullary sinuses. And then the lymph will reach the central region, the paracortex, and then the lymph will reach the central region of the medulla, and the confluence of the medullary sinuses will give rise to the afferent lymphatic vessels. So let's label this. We got the fibrous capsule, we got the afferent lymph vessels. They have valves. Okay. And this subcapsular or marginal sinus or peripheral sinus. Then the lymph flows through paratrabecular sinuses or paracortical sinuses into the deeper portions. By the way, these connective tissue projections are called trabecular. And the lymph will reach the paracortical sinuses and the largest medullary sinuses. Confluence of medullary sinuses produces the efferent lymph vessel. But we know that the lymph nodes could be chained. So the efferent lymph vessel could be an efferent lymph vessel of another lymph node to produce chains. Now, these structures, these oval structures, are lymphoid follicles. If there is this pale center, it's called germinal center. And a follicle with such a germinal center is called secondary lymphoid follicle. Only by looking at it, you can tell by the presence of the germinal center that there is an immune response happening right now. So we actually got 3 compartments in the lymph node. First is the cortex. So the region with the lymphoid follicles, that's the cortex. It's populated mainly by B lymphocytes. The deeper region here is called paracortex. There are no sharp borders here, it's kind of diffuse. But there is still a difference because it contains mostly T lymphocytes. Other structures present in the paracortex are the so-called high endothelial venules, that have really cuboidal endothelium, which is quite rare or strange, because endothelium usually is flat, isn't it? But these endothelial cells, they express some molecules that promote the penetration or transport or diapetesis of B and T lymphocytes from the blood into the lymph node. Then we have the stroma here, stroma of the lymph node, which is made of reticular connective tissue with reticular connective tissue cells, reticular fibers, and macrophages, and so on. And this central region is called medulla. It contains less lymphocytes, but these are mostly B lymphocytes. This will be the arteriole, bringing the blood in. This will be a venule, draining the blood way. And that's the simplified scheme of a lymph node. Please note that the fibrous capsules have sensory innervation, so if a lymph node becomes increased because the lymph follicles are swelling during the immune response, the expansion of the rapid expansion of the lymph node is perceived as pain. But always be afraid of large increased lymph nodes that do not hurt, because this happens, for example, in slowly progressing tumor infiltrating of lymph nodes. Simply said, the lymph node serves as a filter, because these antigens brought by the lymph are filtered here by the macrophages of the sinuses. These sinuses contain lots of macrophages. The follicles also contain follicular dendritic cells, so these antigen-presenting cells are stimulating the immune response mainly of the B lymphocytes. But we got also T lymphocytes in the paracortex.